What network effects fundamentally are is that every new user adds value in your product to other users who are using the product or will use the product. Which means that the more users you get, the bigger you get, the more valuable your product gets, the more ahead you'll get of your competitors. So the faster you go, sort of thing. Sort of rolling downhill, if you will. So network effects are important because in the digital age, there's really only 4 defensibilities left. The first is scale. It's a company like Amazon, which has spent billions of dollars to get to the size where their prices can be so much lower that we all want to go there and use their service. It's a great defensibility, and it works. Another one's embedding. And embedding is used by companies like Oracle or Workday. People are embedding their software into enterprise behaviors. It's very hard to rip them out. And so Oracle will just charge you more and more every year, and there's not much you can do about it. It's hard to replace them. So that's another good defensibility. And then the third is brand. If you're just used to using Google or you're used to using Uber, this is sustainable. People just get in the habit of using something they know and trust. And so brand still works in the digital age. Now, the fourth defensibility is the greatest of them all, and that's the network effects, because it's native to the digital environment. And there's 15, we found 15 so far, of different playbooks and approaches to creating network effects. And for a founder, going after network effects is super important because they're cheaper and easier to get than scale or brand. They're available to you as a founder, and they're more powerful. It's kind of a nice duality. They're cheaper and they're more powerful. So we tend to focus on startups that are looking at network effects because they tend to get bigger, longer term, and it's easier for them to get going. And if you look at the different defensibilities, you'll tend to see that those defensibilities will start off slow, they'll get big, but then they'll asymptote at some point, right? The embeddingness or the scale or the brand will asymptote at some point. The thing with network effects, what you see is they start off low, but when they reach a tipping point, they start up and they give what's known as increasing returns. And so the returns, every new incremental person increases the rate of return to everyone else. And that's not the mathematical characteristic of these other forms of defensibility. All 4 will work, but that's again why network effects is the greatest of the 4. The easiest way to understand it is, let's look at, let's say, a telephone network where one person has a telephone, it's useless because they can't call anyone else. As a second person has a telephone, they can now call one other person in one link. Now you can use it for a little bit. But as soon as you get a third person, this person can now call 2 different people. And as you add more people, the number and the value of all the connections increases dramatically and geometrically so that the value of the overall network increases without you doing anything, just as long as you get new customers. This is the fundamental unit of how value is created using network effects. There are many topologies of how different network effects happen. In fact, we found out that there's 15 different network effects, different playbooks, different ways of approaching it. But they all have this fundamental principle that the more people are using your product or service, the more valuable that product or service gets for everybody else. That user number 1,000 adds value to user number 1, even though you were asleep at the time or busy doing something else. So more value accretes to your business. Companies with network effects at their core have produced more than 70% of all the value in tech. Okay, so if you're a founder and you're not using network effects, it's probably not a great decision. You should be looking at how you add network effects to the design of your business. So why are they powerful? They're powerful because of math. And in the old days, there was a guy named Sarnoff, and he was one of the first to talk about this. And he noticed that if you have a network, he said the value of that network increased with every new node that was on the network. Okay, so the value would be basically proportional to the number n of the nodes on the network. And then along came Metcalfe. And Metcalfe said, well, actually, no, it's actually better than that, because once you get your network, you're actually connecting all of them. And they all benefit each other in ways that, they all benefit each other. And so he said that the value of the network actually increased as a square of the number of nodes on your network, which essentially meant that instead of the value going up linearly, like Sarnoff said, it was actually going up geometrically. And then Reed comes along in 2001 and says, well, that's true, but in addition, you get groups, you get subgroups within these networks. And those powerful networks add value to each other in a way that's even denser than a broader category. And so Reed comes along and says, no, the value is actually 2 to the n, and which means that the actual value goes almost vertical like that. And so because of these mathematical relationships, this is what is underlying the basic reason why network effects become valuable. It's pretty simple. There's a misconception about network effects versus viral effects. They're actually very different things, although some people confuse the two. But let's not confuse them. A viral effect is about acquisition. It's about growth. It's about how your existing users get you new users for free. I'll give you $5 if you get me a new user, and they'll get $5 also. Or, we knew apps on the Facebook platform years ago which would grow 2.5 million people a day that we've never heard of. They never had any sticking power, although they were very viral. Okay? That's one thing. That's sort of a viral acquisition strategy where you're supposed to try to get as many nodes, getting you free new nodes, free new users. And that's great. And that is one growth tactic around the acquisition side. That is not a network effect. A network effect is about retention by adding value to users, where you've designed the business so that every new user who comes on adds more value to the other users who are already there. And a smaller network isn't going to be able to add as much value to the new user than the bigger network. Okay? So it's about value adding and about defensibility in competition with other networks that would be smaller. That's what a network effect is. Defense, not acquisition, which is viral effect. The fastest way to building an iconic company is to not go out and raise a ton of money and spend it all on scale or on brand. Rather, it's to design network effects into what your business does and use that as the lever to leverage yourself into that position. And this is still developing, this is still evolving. We've added 2 network effects we've identified and mapped in the last 6 months, and we're going to keep adding. So it's 15 network effects and counting. If you want to learn everything you want to know about network effects, come to nfx.com in the essay section. My partners and I have founded over 10 companies that have been worth over 10 billion. We've taken all of our knowledge, we've put it on the website so that the founders can learn how to do what we've done.